So many great questions this week, but the main one is on herbs and spices in 18th century recipes. Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. The first question comes from Utah Sustainable Gardening LLC. He says he's commenting on the 1824 English gingerbread recipe. He says, I'm making this up tonight. As I was mixing it, I started wondering why vinegar does not seem to be used as a part of the early chemical leavening mixes. How much of the acid in the molasses contributes to the fluffiness? Most of the time in these early recipes that use chemical leavening agents, generally we see things like sour milk, or they use the honey, the acid in the honey, or molasses is a little acidic, or possibly even lemon juice to do that instead of vinegar, probably because of the vinegar taste that it would add to that recipe and would find distasteful. I'm guessing there. That would be my guess as to why you're seeing that. Kevin Hurt is commenting on the oven in one day episode that we did. That was a great episode where we went out and we built an oven and we were cooking in it the same day, or we could have. What's the purpose of the cement board, and could one do without it? So we built this table. Under the table there were boards and to support the whole entire oven and the bricks above it, and the cement board is there to hold up the entire structure, or else everything would fall between the supports, the 2x4 supports underneath. You could use plywood, but plywood will start to degrade, especially with a high heat. So I used cement board instead of that. If you used something like plywood instead, you could just put an extra layer of sand under it to protect it. This comment came in on the latest recipe that we did, the breakfast sausage one. Those are great. This is rokuki, I think, and the question is: are there any recipes that you're unable to make, like if it calls for an endangered species or an extinct species like passenger pigeon? You do find recipes for things that we just don't have available, or maybe at least in our specific area. Passenger pigeon obviously is one of those kinds of examples that you use. Also, there are many recipes that call for something like sea turtle. Well, obviously you're not going to find sea turtle today, in your supermarket. Also, lots of recipes for the kinds of meat cuts that we don't generally find today. Sometimes you can find them in ethnic meat markets, but very difficult in standard, at least United States supermarkets. Beef pallets, even suet is one of those things. So there are some difficult to find things that either you don't do the recipe or you make substitutes. Jan Penland is commenting on the breakfast sausage episode. I know you probably answered this question before, but I was wondering if you can substitute lard for suet in some recipes, or would it make it too greasy or heavy? When they use suet specifically, there are many times that it really needs to be suet, because lard, while it's similar in some circumstances, breaks down at a lower temperature and it doesn't work as well. If you're just frying in the fat, then it doesn't matter. Lard or suet, either one's going to work. But when it needs to change the consistency of it, in things like the boiled puddings or other situations, even this sausage, I'm not sure if lard would work the same way. So suet really does something different. You can get close with leaf lard, which is sort of the pork version of suet. Sometimes it depends on what you're using it for. This one came in on the same episode. This is Major Agitator. Is there a meat suggestion to replace the veal? Even in the recipe, it called for ham or veal. We used both of them. You could use a ground pork. That's going to work perfectly as a great substitute for the veal there. You could probably even use a ground chicken if you want to try that. We didn't try that, but it probably work out almost as well. This one is Michael Talaganis, And this is also on that same episode. He says, they look great. What other spice variations could be put into these sausages? Are there any recipes that these could be added to? Those are two questions. Let me tackle this. The first one, you could do any kind of interesting takes on this in herbs and spices. You could add some cayenne in this, allspice, or garlic. Those first two you might see in period recipes. Garlic usually wasn't used in cooking quite this same way in a time period fashion, but it would also make a great variation. Now for the question of are there any recipes that these could be added to? Well, it turns out in these 18th century recipes, you'll find all kinds of recipes that call for little force meat balls. And these are exactly that same thing. These are little force meat pieces. And so you can use they're used in any number of 18th century recipes. A lot of soup recipes call for these to be added to, and other recipes too. Here's the main question. This one's Will Shepherd. Again, asking on that sausage episode. He says, I've been a subscriber for about 1.5 years now, and I love the channel. I've made all of the bread recipes and several others. One thing I have noticed is the lack of herbs used in these recipes. It always seems like a small selection of the same spices are consistently used for everything. Is there a reason for the lack of herbs besides the taste of the times reasons? And then he says, thanks for what we do. Well, thank you for the great question. Kevin did an excellent article on the savoringthepast.net cooking blog that kind of is a companion for the videos. It's back at the end of 2012. We'll put a link down in the description section to take you to that blog post. But he kind of went through herbs and spices and talked about them, and specifically sort of common ones you'll see in the cookbooks. And one of the things we have to remember about these recipes and these 18th century cookbooks is they're a little different than today's. Ours are very formulaic, and they say, use exactly this amount, use that amount, use this spice and that spice. In the 18th century, they were a bit more like suggestions. And almost always the spices are suggested in their amounts. How much should I use? That's always just a guess, really. They would expect that the cook that's cooking it would know what spices were available and which ones the household might like better than others. So they were working with a different set of things that might be available, and they expected people to make substitutions when they needed to. But here are some ideas about the spices that you will see in some of these cookbooks. We found references to allspice, to aniseed, basil, bay leaf, caraway, cayenne, chives, cinnamon, clove, coriander, fennel, garlic, ginger, horseradish, lemon zest, mace, marigold, which is pot marigold. It's a little bit different than the kind you normally find. Marjoram, mint, mustard, nutmeg, parsley, lots of pepper, rosemary, sage, savory, sorrel. Basically almost everything that we normally think of as a spice, they would use at least occasionally. The main spices you see over and over again are salt and pepper, lemon peel or lemon zest. Nutmeg is like the next one down, and mace is almost as popular. Then parsley, cinnamon, ginger, and cloves. Those are all very, very common spices you're going to find in these cookbooks. Another question that came in on this same episode over and over again was, how much of these spices should I put in here? And these recipes are all suggestions, so we used about a tablespoon of each as just sort of a test. It turned out pretty good just like that, so we stuck with it. But you can try any number of interesting combinations. A couple little announcements. If you're in the area, we are having the store garage sale here, March 4th and 5th. Come on by. Kevin and I will be here. We'll be in the store, so we'll be available, and lots of interesting things on sale. Also, Kalamazoo, Michigan, the Living History show there is happening on March 19th and 20th. a great event, lots and lots of great vendors, and we'll be there talking to everybody. So if you're in the Kalamazoo, Michigan area, make sure to come by and see us. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your wonderful comments, your amazing questions, and all your encouragement and support. I want to thank everyone out there for watching. If you're a new viewer and you haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button up here. That'll take you to a spot where you can subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching.